And here is Mr. Peter Scott.
Good evening. Commissioners. The presidential message follows. Dear friends.
Could you hold on just a
Sure.
moment, please?
Okay.
Somebody has a speaker on? Okay. Joe?
Let's try it.
Ready? Dear friends, Nancy and I send our greetings to everyone attending the Commitment to Life benefit dinner sponsored by APLA. We take special note of the award being presented this evening to Betty Ford for her compassion and her commitment to the eradication of this disease and the provision of treatment for its victims. Since the first cases of AIDS were reported in this country a few short years ago, the U.S. Public Health Service has made remarkable progress in its effort to conquer it. We have discovered the causative agent and developed a test to assure the safety of the nation's blood supply. But there is still much to be done. The federal government has devoted significant resources to this problem and will continue to devote additional funds to the search for a cure for AIDS and to the development not only of effective treatment methods, but of a vaccine to prevent its spread. My administration has made this effort a top priority, but we recognize the need for concerted action by organizations like yours, devoted to education, support services, and research. By your presence tonight, each of you has made a public expression of your concern about this serious challenge to the nation's health. I hope that all Americans will reflect conscientiously on their responsibility to do whatever is in their power to ensure that this pernicious syndrome is halted in its tracks and ultimately cured. Please know that you are in our thoughts and prayers for a successful evening. Thank you for all you are doing, and God bless you. Signed, Ronald Reagan.
Any questions?
Yes. Whoever's in charge of this, look at the microphones down so we can hear the damn thing.
Oh, sure.
You want it on the floor?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
are you in a position to answer for this administration why it has taken so long for them to respond?
No, I'm really not in that position.
Pudney, are there any plans to televise this?
No, other than coverage in the media.
Mr. Scott, how many funds are expected to be raised by this, and to what use will they be?
We are expecting to raise in excess of $1 million tonight. There are a number of events in the dinner other than the ticket sales, the silent auction and the auction of the Andy Warhol paintings and so forth. So we don't have a total, but we believe it'll be in excess of $1 million. The money will be used to provide education programs, to provide support and care services to people with the disease, and it will be used for research and to further advocacy at the federal level, particularly for additional monies for research.
Mr. Pudney, how did you get involved with the AIDS project?
Some months ago, Mr. Scott, along with Wallace Annenberg and Elizabeth Taylor, requested of ABC and myself to get involved and produce this event as a public service and community effort. It was determined then that we indeed would do that, and that's how we got involved.
Do you know anyone who personally has had to struggle with this disease?
Not really personally, no.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Comments on the rumor of your executive director's resignation.
William Misenhimer, who has been executive director of the AIDS Project for the past 2 years, has tendered his resignation to the board of directors effective October 1. Bill has really, if there's any single individual that has built the organization to what it is today, it's been Mr. Misenhimer. We regret his leaving. His decision was made for personal reasons. I can tell you that being the executive director of that organization for 2 years is a very, very long, arduous task. As I say, we're sorry to see him go. His replacement has been selected, however.
Mr. Scott, Mr. Pudney, what do you hope to educate the public with this event? What sorts of information do you hope to impart?
Those of us who've been dealing with this disease for the past several years are keenly aware of the difficulty of reaching the general public as to the nature of it, the fact that it is not a gay disease. Now I think we'll have to educate the public that it is not a Hollywood disease, but that it in fact affects everyone in this country. The visibility of this evening, we hope, will begin the effort to raise everyone's awareness of the nature of it and what has to be done, which we believe are a massive federal program directed primarily toward research to find a cure.
This is a local effort, the AIDS Project in Los Angeles. Is there a national benefit for this function this evening?
In the sense that there is no national organization that is benefiting. There's really no national organization in existence at this point with regard to AIDS. I might say that although the money sounds very good, in excess of $1 million, that the care associated with this disease, required for this disease, is extraordinarily expensive. You can imagine the medical profession estimates that each patient it costs $120,000 to care for any patient. So our resources are constantly strained, and although we are very grateful for the funds that are coming in tonight, we can certainly use them locally.
Mr. Scott, can you confirm or deny the story that Mr. Misenhimer is moving towards the film of a new national organization being put together by a group of doctors to address the problem of AIDS on a national level?
No, I can't. I really can't comment on that.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce to you one of the co-chairmen for this evening and also a performer for this evening's benefit, Mr. Sammy Davis. Hi.
Hello.
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 How are you? Is there anything that you would like to know? I think that would probably be the best way. Hello, Robin. Is there any?
How and why did you get involved with the Project AIDS?
I became involved with what eventually was this evening. It started about 2 years ago. I did the first public awareness television spots. We had a hard time getting them on the air at that time, 2 years ago. We have recently done some new ones, and the acceptance, thank God, has been wonderful. But I have been involved since then.
2 years ago, when you became involved, was it because you knew of someone who had AIDS or contracted AIDS?
Three of my friends have passed away with it, rather, over a period of time. And at that time, there was total ignorance. No one knew what it was. And then eventually it came out, and then I found out that a couple of other friends, people that I'd worked with, and one in the industry, the other two were not in show business at all, but one was involved in a studio in terms of what these gentlemen are doing, cameraman, and we'd worked together on several films, and I was told. And that made me become aware of it. So when they asked me would I do the awareness spots, I said yes.
What do you hope comes out of tonight's involvement?
I hope, beside the money and all of us being involved, I hope a great deal of dignity comes out of it. Because it's what the victims, the people who are cursed with this dreaded disease deserve. They deserve dignity. And to have their disease presented and the help that whatever we can give, presented with dignity, not like it's the new thing in town, not like it's a Hollywood la-di-da. It should be presented with dignity. I'm proud to be associated with the show because from what I've seen from this morning at 10 o'clock till now, it has that kind of ring to it. And I think that subsequently, because of us getting involved, that'll get the non-performers and the people on the street involved in it, which we have to have them, both in an awareness capacity and also the financial help, if we can. If we make it too cliquish, then they'll say, well, it's Hollywood and blah, blah, blah. And it isn't Hollywood, as we know the truth to be. It touches everybody, every community.
Why is it so difficult to get people in the industry involved 2 years ago, and why is it easier to get them involved now?
I think, frankly, to answer the second part of that question first, Rock Hudson, the tragedy of Rock. We all admired him, know him. Secondly, nobody wanted to touch it. It was unpopular. It reminded me very much of civil rights. You could pick all of the people in the beginning when Dr. King first came around. Then after a while, then it was fashionable and it was okay to do. The people who are here this evening, they are very special because it's a cross-section of our industry. And I think they are all to be commended for putting their best theatrical foots forward beside their hearts. That's obvious, but they have put it on the line. And nobody can point a finger at this lineup, you know, and say, if someone doesn't like me, well, then I defy them not to like Carol Burnett, or at least when I say not like, I mean question why they're there. Because I think there are people here who have a great deal of dignity in their lives and have led good lives.
Sam?
Yes.
Peter Scott mentioned earlier that $1 million is a lot, but it's obviously not enough over the long run. Are there any plans at this stage for any long-term, long-range projects, an annual benefit, a video, anything that could continue the amount of money coming in?
Well, I don't know. There's been a lot of things kicked around that I've heard about. And I think I'm probably at the end of the list, but like most of the performers who are here this evening, we all said, hey, whatever we can do to help, just let me know. If it means pouring coffee, a thing at the house, whatever, as well as performing. But I would like to think that this is not, it's a flash in the pan, and it should be one evening, and that's it, it'll go away, you know. No, it is ongoing, and we do have to commit ourselves past this evening. And I sincerely hope that the media does the same thing for us, so that it just doesn't become the popular story, but something that will be ongoing and keep it in the public's eye, so that they'll know what's going on.
Sam, being as close to AIDS as you personally have been,
Yes.
how do you emotionally approach a performance like this?
Well, it's always difficult when you're doing anything. When I do muscular dystrophy, you know, I have to approach it as, first of all, am I there as a performer? And that's what I'm there as. So I'm going to give the best performance that I can give. This evening, to work with Carol and to do something that we have never done publicly. We've done it on television once on a special, but she suggested it. It works. We rehearsed it all afternoon, and the people. So subsequently, we became the performers. Now, as soon as the rehearsal was over and you sit down, the enormity of it hits you, of why we're doing this. But when you're on stage, you're performing, and you want to give the best performance you can. And particularly, I'm pleased because to work with Carol is a positive joy, because she's a pro from the top of her head, tip of her toes, you know. So that's the only way I can answer you.
Sam, you're involved in every facet of the entertainment industry. There have been many rumors, but really no concrete evidence. Have you heard or seen of any discrimination against gay actors?
No, I would not be exposed to it because I don't do that many films. I've heard things, yes, I've read things, but I take that with a little bit of more than a grain of salt. I would have to, before I would give a testimony to it, would have to be around it, to watch it and to see it happening. And I don't do that many pictures, so I don't really know. I'm not home that often, you know, to even be aware of it.
Well, it doesn't have to necessarily be in the film industry. Have you seen any discrimination since the...
No, in my field of nightclubs and concerts, no. None whatsoever. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for coming this evening. We need your help. I will talk on you later on it.
I'd now like to introduce to you one of the co-chairmen for this evening, Ms. Sybil Brand, and the Executive Director of the AIDS Project Los Angeles, Mr. Bill Misenhimer.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Misenhimer, are you going to head a federal program like the AIDS Project LA?
There
I know that you
is.
resigned.
Yes, I have resigned from the AIDS Project. There are studies being conducted right now as to whether or not a National AIDS Research Foundation is needed, and we all think it is. I have been involved in those discussions, and at this point there is no answer as to whether or not I will be involved in that group.
You have been involved with AIDS at least for several years that I've been aware of. Do you have any idea why it has taken the government so long to come out and say something? I mean, tonight was the first time that President Reagan has even sent a message.
Certainly. I think it's been obvious to those of us who have been involved for the past 3 to 4 years that the reason that the reason the government has not gotten involved is because of the groups that have been affected. It's not news to me. I've gone to too many foundations and too many governmental task forces and testimonies to know that the reason this disease has not gotten the attention that it deserves is because it's mainly affected gay and bisexual men and IV drug users. There's no doubt in my mind.
Are you a little cynical about Hollywood now becoming involved after you've worked so long and so hard?
No, I'm not cynical. I'm extremely grateful. There's a mixed blessing in the fact that there's an overwhelming sense of support right now. There's always the thought in my mind is, I wish this had happened 3 years ago. I mean, I can't deny that, but I'm extremely grateful for what's happening.
Mrs. Brand, you're involved in practically every cause I can think of, including tonight's event. What do you think or hope this event will do to dispel the real fear of AIDS in this country?
Well, I think, personally, now they are really and truly beginning to realize what it is. I have been working with them for 2 years now, and just as my friend here says, they did not come out with it. They didn't really take us too seriously, I guess. But now I think everybody is really and truly aware of it and want to do everything they can to help.
Mrs. Brand, do you know of anyone personally who has been affected by AIDS?
I know 2 or 3. Yes, so do you.
Bill, if there were a national program to address the AIDS crisis, if you will, is that something that you would personally want to move toward for your career?
Well, there's no doubt that I want to stay involved in the AIDS issue. I gave up a career at Xerox to do this. My aspirations is that the issue of AIDS has become my life, and it's consuming, as a matter of fact. And I do want to stay involved in the AIDS issue in whatever capacity I can. So if that were to happen, yes, I'd have to say yes, I would be interested in doing that.
Mr. Misenhimer,
Yes.
why?
Why?
Why did you give up your career?
I have no idea. I've been thinking about it for years, and I mean for the last 2 years, and I just don't know. I know that I was personally scared about 3 years ago. I got very scared for myself. I was beginning to lose friends. I was not particularly satisfied by the corporate environment, and I could never in my wildest dreams have imagined that I would be doing what I am today. It's a drive that I have, and it's motivated from personal fear for myself as well as the concern and well-being for everyone. It's amazing how strong it is.
One question. Because of the position that you have held, have any actors called AIDS Project Los Angeles to complain that they have been discriminated against?
That actors have been,
Yes, actors.
that they've been discriminated against in their jobs?
In their jobs, yes, sir.
I don't know from personal experience. I know from talking to one of my social workers that we have had not actors, but people in the entertainment industry who have had some problems. I can't say that it was discrimination about their jobs. I would assume it was related to that. But certainly, I don't know of any personal calls from actors that we have gotten about not getting a part because they had AIDS.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce to you a featured performer in this evening's festivities, Mr. Sam Harris.
Hello.
Hello. Tell us why you are participating in tonight's event.
In July, Elizabeth Taylor called and asked me if I would sing in the show, and at the time I think I was the only performer, and then it's become this huge event, but that's why. It's an important cause.
You know anybody who has AIDS or?
Not personally, but I don't know anybody in Ethiopia either. And it seems to be, you know, I guess the Rock Hudson thing, you know, brought it to the attention of everyone. But I'm proud to say that I was involved before that. But it is very exciting that it's become what it has.
Have you personally experienced the fear in the industry of working with gay crew members, gay actors, because of the possibility of contracting the disease?
Not personally, I haven't. I think the whole hysteria has been a little overblown, but I can't really say firsthand because I've been working in the studio for the past 4 months, and so I haven't really been, you know, involved with a lot of activity.
Are you saying that, you know, if this were an event for Ethiopia, it would mean as much to you as it being an event for AIDS?
No, that's difficult. I think this is closer because it's in our lives. Everybody's in danger, and we don't know about it, and that's scary, you know. Hunger is something we know about, or we can at least relate to. So no, I'm not comparing the issues. I was just saying that you don't have to know somebody or be directly involved, of course, to appreciate the cause.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce to you another featured performer this evening, songwriter and recording artist Richard Carpenter. Evening.
Mr.
We're
Carpenter?
going to be doing a redone version of a song, We've Only Just Begun.
We've only just begun,
Can you
yes.
tell us the meaning of this song as it relates to the event tonight and to the whole AIDS issue?
Well, the theme of tonight's entertainment is moved towards the mic, is commitment to life. And We've Only Just Begun is a positive song Karen and I introduced in 1970, but it really started life as a wedding song, actually. So some of the lyrics did have to be rewritten. And we selected Ray Charles, who's been in the business for years. He's a choral director and a special material writer for many, many different variety shows. And he did a beautiful job of taking White Lace and Promises, putting that aside, and substituting some lyrics that would really work well for tonight's entertainment.
What is the meaning of it as it relates to AIDS? You know, we've only just begun. Is it because of the research? What, to understand?
I think people's awareness of the disease and people's willing, and not just the entertainment communities, but people in general, their approach now to actually try to discover what the secrets are of this disease and eradicate it as quickly as possible. So, of course, the opening lyrics to We've Only Just Begun are We've Only Just Begun to Live, and from there it goes into hope and working together and such as that. Rona.
Richard, is there a personal reason why you have become involved with AIDS?
No, I was asked by Joe Layton, who's directing tonight's entertainment. Joe worked with Karen and me in '76 and '7 on our shows, our live shows, and he was thinking of a particular song that would work well
for Diahann, Carol, and for this entertainment tonight, and he thought we've only just begun, so he gave me a call. And so I put together a special arrangement for tonight's show, and got a hold of Ray to change the lyric.
Are you afraid of this epidemic? Are you, is there any, I know you say you have no one personally or no personal reason, but the fact that you're spending your time here and participating in this, do you have a fear that a lot of people in this business do?
Well, I think just about, it's getting to the point now. In fact, the program that's on tonight on NBC said that they feel it's almost approaching a panic level. And I think most people are really starting to think about this quite a bit, because there are so many secrets, so many mysteries about the disease. I do not know anyone personally with the disease, but I think that the entertainment community coming out and giving their all to get this on the road, to get the money raised and research on the road, I think is most commendable.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, people.
I'd like to now introduce you to some featured speakers this evening, Mr. and Mrs. Gerald Kushman.
We're not Elizabeth Taylor and Burt Lancaster. Thank you. Hi, Rona. How are you? It's good to see you again. And we don't do this, so we're real nervous.
Just in way of introduction, on October 13th, 1983, our 3-year-old twin son died of AIDS from a blood transfusion he had received when he was born, leaving...
Excuse me. Samuel Kushnick.
Samuel, his death left us totally devastated, and we suddenly realized that his twin sister had been in a situation where she had never had a life without her brother. And here, suddenly, we were without Sam, and she was without her brother.
Shall we let you ask questions? Is that easier?
This was a situation in which you had trouble getting your son buried, as I recall, because he had AIDS and you were facing an enormous amount of discrimination.
What happened was that when they diagnosed him in the hospital, the blood banking people refused to accept the fact that he'd gotten AIDS from a blood transfusion. We found out that Sam was the 4th premature male to die in Los Angeles in an 8-month period of what the pediatricians were saying was blood transfusion AIDS, but the blood banking industry was saying was not. So during that whole 19 days in the hospital with him, the walls came up. There was a lot of stonewalling bureaucracy. When Sam did die, I left the hospital and I said to Jerry as I was leaving, please don't let them cover this up. Have them put AIDS on the death certificate. I don't want them putting anything but AIDS on the death certificate. And they did, and when the morticians saw the death certificate and it said AIDS, then they refused to dress him for burial until our rabbi intervened and explained to them that they couldn't get AIDS from preparing his body for burial, and he was finally dressed.
It took me 45 minutes of heated discussion immediately after my son's death to have AIDS put on the death certificate.
So where have we gone from this tragedy that you went through 3 years ago to now in terms of understanding the disease?
I think that where we've come in the last 2 years, as far as Jerry and I are concerned, we decided after Sam's death, we were approached by 2020 and asked if they could do a piece primarily on community reaction to AIDS because Sarah had been asked to leave the school that she was in, the nursery school. They thought that since Sam had AIDS that she might somehow be contagious. And while he was in the hospital dying, they came and told us to take her out of school. We agreed to let them do that, to go public with this rather than accept the fear situation that existed at the time and not wanting to associate ourselves with this disease. I think primarily because the Centers for Disease Control at that time wasn't counting any of these children under the age of 5. Pediatric AIDS was not a disease in 1983. The blood banking industry had not acknowledged officially that you could get AIDS from a blood transfusion, so therefore no one was doing anything about it. There wasn't a push to find a test to detect AIDS in blood.
I think what we did learn, and we learned it immediately, was that this was not a homosexual disease or a disease confined to any specific category, that this was a disease that could affect every single American family in one way or another. And we have been fighting ever since. And I think one of the most difficult questions, somebody said to me, if you could find out who the blood donor was, wouldn't you want to do some physical damage to this person, just to destroy them. And I said, how can you really object to anyone? Or how can you hate anyone or be angry at anyone who thought they were doing the very best thing in the world, giving the gift of life? What we are angry with is the system, because the blood should have been checked. Sam and Sarah's birth, the hospital bill alone was $127,000. Sam's 19 days in the hospital to die was $96,000. That's without doctors. I certainly would have been more than glad to pay an extra $5 a pint to have the blood tested.
I think that what made us very angry is that these children in the neonatal units were routinely being transfused without any thought given to what infections they were picking up from these transfusions. And one of the things that we did, again, because of the media and the media attention in 1984, the president of the American Red Cross, Richard Schubert, called us and asked us to meet with him. So along with Dr. Arthur Almond, who was at the time with UC San Francisco, they formed an ad hoc committee on pediatric blood transfusion procedures, which took place in Washington in January of this year, and they've now changed the way they transfuse these children. We had to educate the medical community, which I think is a primary importance. They just didn't know that this was going on. There's not very good lines of communication from the local physician who finds something to the Centers for Disease Control, back to the other practicing physicians, and back to a hospital.
How do you think an event like this tonight will help, and what Hollywood is doing to help?
I think the more that's being done, the better. I think that as long as we get an awareness up, then the dollars will come after that for research out of the government. The government's been very slow in responding to this disease. There was a number of situations that, one thing on top of another. In 1980, with all the budget cutbacks, there were a bunch of clinical research centers across the country that were closed. And just as this disease was coming to a place where somebody needed to look at it, and what happened was that the funding, the limited funding that existed for clinical research was in Washington at the National Institutes for Health, but the patient population was in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, and Florida. They weren't flying these people back to NIH to do epidemiological studies.
We were told that this was the Northeast and the Northwest disease, that it shouldn't affect my constituency. I'm from Arizona, so I don't have a problem. I'm from Minnesota. I don't have a problem. And why should we fund something that really only affects San Francisco, New York, and maybe Florida?
Mrs. Kushman, Bill Misenhimer before said that he thought that the reason that the government was so slow in making its move was that basically this was considered to be a homosexual's disease. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's evidence of it. I went back to Washington. I mean, if you'll read the federal response to AIDS, the hearings that took place in 1983, it's there. It's right there in the printed record. There were a lot of fundamentalist groups working in Washington saying, why bother spending money on this, because all the cutbacks were happening anyway. You know, let's put it into some disease that doesn't affect just homosexuals.
By bringing it to the forefront, as we have tried to do in the last 2 years since our son's death, we really hope that people will understand that there is no reason to fear it. It is not a disease to be feared.
Are there plans to bring your story to motion pictures or television?
We've had some discussions about that. We'll see what happens. We're more concerned this year. We're setting up a pediatric immunology research program in our son's name at the Hayam Shiva Medical Center in Tel HaShamir, Israel. And we're having a dinner at the end of the year honoring Barbara Corday, the president of Columbia Pictures Television. So that's what we're doing, and this year. And
one point that I really do want to make in addition to that is Helen, myself, and Sarah have been tested. We shown no reaction whatsoever, not even to the point where we have been exposed to the virus. And this is true for 12,000 other family members. So to keep children out of school and to keep their brothers and sisters out of school is absolutely ludicrous.
You know, the one thing that we don't have a... Right, well, right.
They knew, but they weren't...
No. No, you're missing the point. The point is that It's the reverse that's true to me. It's because we didn't know that Sam had the disease. There were no extraordinary precautions taken in terms of caring for him, changing his diapers. Now, a lot of the doctors suggest hepatitis B precautions, but they're not necessary because this virus doesn't live very well outside of the body. This virus has been in the country probably since the mid-'70s and maybe a little bit earlier, when we didn't know what it was or that there was an AIDS. It's 10 years later. If this disease and this virus was casually contracted, half the country would be dead. Probably 3/4 of us wouldn't be in this room right now.
We suddenly
It's impossible.
Last question.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Shirley, it's Kushnick.
N-I-C-K.
What's your first name?
Helen.
Helen.
And Jerry.
And Gerald with the...
Jerrold.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce to you now another featured performer, Mr. Stephen Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. He's a comedian.
Mr. Wright,
Hi.
is it difficult to be funny on a night like tonight?
No, I don't think so. There's a show involved, so during the time I'm on the show, I'll be funny.
Why did you become involved with AIDS?
Because it's my way of doing what I can do since I'm not a doctor. I perform, so I thought I'd perform. They asked me if I wanted to do it, and I thought it'd be a good idea to do it.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce to you now a good friend of the AIDS Project Los Angeles, Zelda Rubinstein.
Why don't I just remove it?
What was that?
Oh, okay, fine, sure. Fine, thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hello. I'm fine. How are you, Miss Barrett?
Ms. Rubinstein, there have been a lot of rumors, but not concrete evidence, that there has been discrimination against actors. Are you aware, have you seen or heard or know of such a situation?
Yes, and I do not care to name names. Yes, I do think it is going on.
Why don't you wish to name names? I mean, isn't this the only way that we could possibly bring it to the public's attention and make something positive?
I think it's the responsibility of the people who have been discriminated against to talk about it with themselves. It has not happened to me because of my involvement in as figurehead of the LA Cares campaign. If it does happen, I'll handle it. And, Madam, you will be the first one I call. Hi.
Hi, could you tell us a little bit about your participation in tonight's event, why this event is so important to you as an actress and a person?
My participation is quite minimal. I've not been invited to speak. I'm basically here as to support the cause. I feel not only involved, but just about embroiled. This is too low. I've never had to speak down to anything. Solve the problem. Okay. I'm involved because last Christmas I lost a friend on his 34th birthday. And maybe it was just the configuration of the stars, or maybe I was just mature enough and angry enough and hurt enough that I wanted to do something positive so this beautiful man would not have died without raising the level of consciousness of this city and this industry. And the opportunity came along for me to be involved by being a figurehead of the only educational campaign that this state funded. And my background was medicine up until 5 years ago. I was really a very good candidate from this because the literature I had to learn came easily to me because of my medical background. And I'm a non-threatening figure physically. And it's easy to represent a family member, somebody as primary as a mother, when you're not threatening. And I'm not threatening.
As the adopted mother to the gay community of Los
Yes.
Angeles, have you received any public, any negative repercussions on the street? Anyone, not just necessarily in the industry, but on the street, has there been a backlash?
No, sir.
You're just about the only one any one of us have heard say that you do know of discrimination.
Yes, I do.
Place.
Yes, I do.
Are all the others trying to fool us, or are they lying? Why haven't they said anything?
Maybe it didn't affect them. A lot of people that you have asked have reached a level of acceptance in this community, very much like Mr. Hudson, Rock Hudson. He's just a pillar of the community. And, I mean, you have to be mad to go after the people who can afford to sue the Inquirer. Hi, anything else?
There's a great deal of
Where are you?
concern. There's a great deal of concern that there's something of a backlash in America. People saying we don't care about AIDS, it doesn't affect us, it only affects homosexuals. And that, will the Hollywood community getting involved help or hinder that perception?
The Hollywood community getting involved will help. I would hope that the media would be very responsible in this issue and not hype the fear angle, but instead pass constructive, useful, accurate information on how one contracts AIDS. And, you know, forget about presenting this, you know, like you're a tabloid magazine. You're not. The world listens to you. I listen to you.
I'd like to introduce to you now co-hosts for this evening, Ms. Marlo Thomas and Bill Donahue.
Well, Miss Rona, hello. You had the Kushman, I remember, on your show years ago when
I did.
they lost their son.
Mhm.
When you look at the difference between then and now, and who's getting involved and jumping on the bandwagon, are you somewhat cynical at this point, or would you have liked the whole issue of AIDS presented the way it's being presented now, 3 to 5 years?
Sure we would. I think we all would. And I think we're all hopeful that the popular stars who will be visible tonight, Burt, Lancaster, and Elizabeth Taylor, just to name two, will help to, I think it'll make it easier for others to make a contribution to the effort to resolve this crisis.
Does AIDS scare either of you personally? Do you have any fear of contracting it?
Not at the moment, no.
What would you say to a mother who says, I'm not going to take my child to school because Johnny supposedly has AIDS?
So far, there really hasn't. I don't think that one should be afraid to send their child to school with another child who has AIDS. I don't think that children get involved in the kind of activity that would cause them to contract AIDS.
I do not think my child in a school system of several thousand children would be at risk. I don't think we should condemn the anxiety of those parents who've chosen not to send their children to school. And we can only hope that continued sharing of information will make it easier for others who, because of the confusion and the occasional inability to answer all the questions on the part of the research community, will help us all recognize that there has been no evidence of anybody contracting AIDS as in any manner except by intimacy, IV drug use, or blood transfusion.
Why is the two of you involved? Is it the educational part that you want to stress? What do you want to stress with your presence here at this event?
Well, I feel that it's time for us to send some kind of signal to the government, really, to become involved in what could be a panic, a chance to become more homophobic, and the fact that people are truly dying from a disease that seems to have no cure. So why don't we care about the health of our people as much as we care about another moonshot? And I think, as usual, I mean, it's sort of a tradition that people who have some kind of light on them can take that light and focus it on something that they care about. And I feel, having spent most of my life following my father around raising money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital that deals with leukemia and cancers in children, that one of the things I learned is that in 20 years they found a over 10-year cure rate for leukemia at St. Jude's. So if they could do that with leukemia that 10 years ago, or in 1960, 20 years ago, there was no cure rate, then certainly with some money and some concentration that we can cure this as well. And why does it always have to be outside of the government? Why doesn't the government get interested in the health of the people?
Since you did your show today, are you convinced that there is discrimination in Hollywood?
I don't have any doubt that there are people in Hollywood who are concerned about interacting, especially in the business of creating an intimate illusion on the screen for theatrical purposes with strangers. And I don't think we should be surprised that that anxiety exists. Now, I think Hollywood has an opportunity to demonstrate what traditionally has been a very receiving and progressive attitude toward people who are different, including homosexuals, and work to help share the information with the public at large that this is not a matter of the gay community, it's a matter of the human community. And there's nobody that could be more effective in getting out that information that would realize this goal than would be the people who create our fantasies and the people who are really the center of the communications industry, and that's in this town.
Bill Misenhimer and the Kushneks both stated that they felt that the reason our government has been so slow to respond was that basically AIDS was a homosexual disease. Do you agree that was the reason? That is the reason?
I do agree.
Do you think that
I agree, but I think it's also traditional that they don't really spend the kind of money that we should on medical research or scientific research. No, we didn't do it for leukemia. You know, we don't spend our money there. We invest our money in bombs and missiles and airplane carriers, and we don't spend our money for the health of the people. People are dying from it. How could it be chic? I don't understand what you mean. It's chic to support it? I don't think so.
I think we underestimate the common sense of the community of Americans at large. I think media especially has a responsibility to watch its language as it reports this medical crisis. I think words like hysteria and other words from the hyperbole vocabulary are often used for circulation and attention, and perhaps at the expense of honesty and truth. I don't think any of us do this with malice, but I do think we have to watch. I think if we ever had a responsibility to report evenly, and we might even say conservatively, accurately to be sure, It's about this issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce to you one of the co-chairmen of this evening, Ms. Shirley MacLaine.
I'll be truthful.
Hi, Rona.
Ms. MacLaine, any reaction to the president's letter? It seems to be very supportive without any concrete statements as far as additional funding, et cetera, into AIDS research.
I haven't seen a letter. Did he mention the word? Oh, sure. I think that's wonderful, because he's one of our business.
Why have you decided to get involved for the benefit this evening?
I don't really think there's any choice or any decision to make when an epidemic of panic is at stake. And so much of that is because of a kind of a media trance about what's happening. And personally, we each have to make up our minds what we're going to do with this panic. You know, individually, we have to make up our own minds how we feel about it. And because all of it is being formed in the public's mind by the media, if we're not afraid and we choose to be balanced in love instead of unbalanced in fear, that will possibly help affect the media's interpretation of what's going on. So that's why I'm here.
And why is there so much centered around Hollywood support at this point? Is it Rock Hudson, or is it the number of homosexuals who are involved in the film and television community?
It could be a little bit that this town more or less exemplifies the gods and goddesses of society. And if one of this town is affected and has the courage to say so, we don't often really mean to call attention to ourselves. It's as though we're responding to the attention that's lavished on us. And
Do you think that Rock Hudson became the figure of this issue, not really wanting to reveal it, and somehow it came out and he was all of a sudden involved?
I don't know. I don't know how those logistics worked with Rock, but I've had 3 friends die of this disease who happen to be in this business, and it's not like a regular disease. This is not only a disease that's fatal, but it's a disease of panic. It's a plague mentality that's going on here. And I think we have as much to be concerned about how we respond to the plague mentality as we do to the disease itself. Well, a plague mentality sort of, it's recoiling from your friends. It's every single small interpersonal act of affection is suspect. I mean, when we're really afraid in an environment of the plague, we are capable of the most dark kind of bigotry.
Are you afraid, personally?
No, I've made my choice that I know that I will have to live with how I behave with this disease in my business, in my environment, in love scenes or whatever I have to do. I've made my choice that I will go with love instead of fear, because I think those are the two basic emotions in the human experience, love and fear, and all the other emotions stem from them.
On another issue, another level, you said that Hollywood exemplifies the gods and goddesses of society. Rock Hudson admitting to this disease and having it now public knowledge, has this in effect brought Hollywood, as it were, out of the closet? And what do you think the public's reaction is going to be to actors and the movie business and the entertainment business as a whole?
I think they separated us from society as a mainstream reality anyway, so it's very good to understand that we are human beings. I mean, what will happen when the first politician gets it? What will happen when the first atomic scientist gets it? You know, they're...
You said that this could possibly bring out the darkest kind of bigotry. Is that something that you think is going on right now? Do you think that Hollywood is being motivated by that right now?
motivated by bigotry?
No, not motivated by the fear mentality.
I think the plague mentality, the epidemic of panic, is serious and caused to a large extent by the media. I think it would be wonderful if you would focus as intensely on those of us who've made the decision not to fear, as much as you have those who have made the decision to fear. Everyone has to do that in their life. Everyone has to search their own soul for... Really, frankly, the outer reality begins with the inner recognition, so each one of us has to go through that. We have to decide how we'll behave.
Has the press created that rumor of fear, or is that something actually...
No, I don't think so. I think it... look, it's a great story. It's got sex, drugs, death, famous people. It's a hard story to not exploit. But it would be wonderful if the human equation were a higher priority than the exploitation of fear, because this could tear the very fabric of our society apart if we allow fear and suspicion to triumph.
One more question, please.
The Screen Actors Guild, Shirley, has requested a meeting with the Alliance of Motion Picture and TV Producers to see what can be done to prevent the discrimination against gay actors in the wake of the AIDS crisis. Do you think this will do any tangible good?
I think it's very good that the organization against bigotry, against blacklisting, against fear, and against panic is enacted. I think it's good.
Do you know of anyone who's been blacklisted?
No.
Thank you, Ms. MacLaine.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce Reverend Stephen Pieters, that's S-T-E-P-H-E-N-P-I-E-T-E-R-S. He's a featured speaker this evening and a person with AIDS. Reverend Stephen Pieters.
My name is Reverend Steve Pieters. I was diagnosed with AIDS in April of 1984, following a year and a half of illnesses. I am a minister with the Metropolitan Community Churches. I serve on the board of directors of the AIDS Project Los Angeles, and I'm speaking tonight about living with AIDS. And that's my focus, is helping people to live with AIDS. I have found over the last year and a half since my diagnosis that my life has been very full and satisfying and fulfilling, in spite of the terror surrounding this disease, in spite of the stigma. I'm a happy person today, and I don't know what the future holds, but today I am alive, and that feels good.
What do you think or hope this event will do to dispel the real fear of AIDS in this country?
I am very hopeful that the turnout of stars and celebrities will really help people across the country realize that there is nothing to fear from being in the same room with a person with AIDS, from embracing a person with AIDS, from being present to a person with AIDS. I hope that not casually contagious, that you cannot catch it from being in the same room with me or shaking my hand or sharing household utensils. There is no evidence that people who live in the same household who are not sexual partners with people with AIDS run a risk of contracting AIDS.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
I'd like to now introduce the honorary receiver of this evening's Commitment to Life Award, Mrs. Betty Ford, Mayor Tom Bradley of Los Angeles, and Mr. Peter Scott.
Two wonderful escorts tonight. My husband will be jealous. He wouldn't know it. Didn't know I was going to be so fortunate.
Mrs. Ford, do you know anyone who personally has had AIDS?
I imagine I do, but right offhand, I can't happen to bring that person to mind. I'm aware of many people who have had AIDS and who have died of AIDS, and this is what tonight is all about.
Mrs. Ford, there's been a lot of talk about one of the reasons that Washington has not supported research for AIDS for so long is that because it's, quote, a homosexual disease and because of the flavor of politics in the country. What is your reaction to that? Do you perceive a changing in attitude from the government, or do you think that is indeed a fair charge?
Well, perhaps it's the government's misunderstanding of the fact that it was going to be affecting so many other people. Yes, I think there was some discrimination in the beginning because of funding, and you know our national debt is at such an extent that they're not very apt to fund something until they get pushed a while, and I think they're pushed now so that they're doing something about it.
Mrs. Ford, you're receiving an award tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about why you received this award?
Well, the award tonight is very meaningful to me. I hope that I can really live up to it as far as what I think it stands for. When I had breast cancer, and that at that time was pretty much a non-discussed topic, we were very open about it. And I think the same was true with my alcoholism and drug dependency, and I think that that is why the award is being given to me, because we addressed it, and I want to address this subject just as well. If in any way I can help in better understanding for the public and anyone, I think it'll be a help.
May I just add that because of Mrs. Ford's courage in using her visibility to help deliver a message, to put down the stereotypes about various illnesses, diseases, she's been selected to receive this honor, and we're very proud of her.
We must have answered all their questions. Thank you.
While we have a pause, if you wanted to focus on this, this is the Andy Warhol design that was commissioned for the event. This is on the cover of this is the cover of the program book.
Oh. I want more over here.
Okay.
I'm now passing out news releases from the mayor.
We just missed the man. Why don't we have it before?
They just brought it in with them. Okay.
Could you do me a favor, just put it down so you just probably get it tight.
You're moving it up. Just set it down there.
A little more this way, the mic. Yeah. Right there. Sorry, Andrew?
Could you give me the proper spelling of Rubinstein?
R-U-B-E-N-S-T-E-I-N.
First name?
Zelda, Z-E-L-D-A.
And how about the Reverend,
Stephen?
Right.
S-T-E-P-H-E-N. Pieters, P-I-E-T-E-R-S. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Kim Criswell. She's a featured performer this evening singing Memory from the musical Cats. Criswell.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
And how are you all tonight? Good. I think I even recognize some of you people.
Why did you become involved with the AIDS Project?
It's a very personal cause for me. I've lost two people to the disease, and the second one died 2 weeks ago. And I have 2 or 3 other friends, one of them we're not sure yet, who have the disease. And they have, they're living with it, but it's got to be solved. It's got to be cured. It's more than just a gay disease. Everyone's figuring that out now, but it's a little bit late. It should have been figured out right from the beginning. So that's why I'm involved in it.
Are you personally afraid because of losing friends?
No, it's never occurred to me to be afraid, actually, of it for myself personally, because, if I get hit by a truck, I get hit by a truck. That's my attitude about life. Whatever happens to me will. But I hate to see so many of my friends at risk, and it's unbelievably scary to anybody who has a lot of friends, people they love, who have been through it and are going through it.
Did you ever find yourself changing your habits, the way you greeted your friends, the way you responded to them once you discovered that they had AIDS?
Not for a second. No, I think if I can't hug one of my friends with AIDS, then I don't want to be around anyway. I don't care. I really don't.
Do you think this evening will do something more than just for people that Hollywood knows how to put on a party?
Well, I hope so. I hope it's more than just another Hollywood party. I hope it opens people's eyes. I mean, my own parents, for instance, in Tennessee, they live in Tennessee, and the knowledge, the stuff that comes down to them, that filters down to them in those states, isn't the same thing that we know in the big cities. So the information needs to get to everybody about all the details of the disease, what causes it, how is it spread, all of those things. And it becomes a different disease when it's affecting someone who is someone you love, as opposed to people you don't know. I've explained to my parents that I have friends who are dying of it, and that's, it sobered them up. They didn't realize I had friends that had the disease.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
That's K-I-M, Kim Criswell, C-R-I-S-W-E-L-L. C-R-I-S-W-E-L-L.
First name?
Kim, K-I-M. She's the featured performer this evening, and she is the star of the Los Angeles production of Cats. I'd like to now introduce to you one of the co-chairmen this evening and one of the co-hosts, Mr. Burt Lancaster and his daughter Joanna. She's going to just watch the coach me.
Well, do you want me to make a speech or something?
Mr. Lancaster, why did you become involved with AIDS?
Well, everybody's involved with AIDS. It's something in the news today. In our business, particularly in show business, as you know, we meet very often a great many homosexual people who become very dear friends, very talented people. We've known them for years, from the time I was in circuses over 50 years ago. And I think this is true of virtually everybody who has some experience in show business. To us, they're just people, and they're very talented people. If we dislike them, we dislike them not because they're homosexuals. We dislike them because maybe they're bad people, or we think they're bad people. And I suppose for people who live in communities where they never rub shoulders with people who are gay people, that they're very strange and rather frightening people to them, or they are frightened of them, or they're worried about them, or something of that nature, because their own life experience doesn't allow them to understand or to live with them and to accept them.
Do you have any criticism of our government for having taken so long to respond to this particular?
Not necessarily. I think that's in the nature of things. Until something becomes critical, they tend not to want to deal with it.
I think there are people in this industry who are afraid.
I'm sorry?
Are there more people in this industry who are afraid to reveal the fact that they're homosexual and
Well,
find that they have AIDS?
it might come to that because somebody was talking about blacklisting. And of course, if it does, then I think it's shocking and it's a shame.
You think it'll come to blacklisting?
I have no idea that it will. And when I was in the other room, we were talking on the video where someone mentioned the fact if I had known about the blacklisting, it was coming. I do know about, as an actor, and knowing something about my guild, that there has been some rumors to the extent that the actors may not indulge in kissing scenes anymore, because it seems that kissing, some people feel, or the rumor has arisen that you can contact the disease through kissing. I was telling them I had a doctor friend of mine, a lady doctor, who was writing a book about some of the problems, who indicated to me that perhaps you can get it through tears. Now, every evidence that I read keeps saying there is only the business of actual intercourse and the business of transmission of blood and blood transfusions, things of that kind, that are then knowledgeably, they know for sure can transmit the disease, and the others are not either not true or they have no evidence to the fact that they are. But as has been said, of course, there has been no downright actual the doctors have not been able to say with absolute certainty yet, because they probably haven't gotten into it long enough, that these are the parameters, whatever they may be. This particular woman went on to say that it may be that around 22,000 or a little later, we might have a million people having AIDS. Well, if that's true, I mean, we're in terrible trouble. But
You will be reading a letter tonight from Rock.
yes.
What do you feel about what's happened to Rock and how maybe that's shed?
Well, I think that he has had terribly shabby treatment. I mean, I think that's, ironically, I think that it's very, he has been, what has happened to him has brought the whole issue to the surface on a huge international scale. And you might say that that's good. That's certainly, that part of it is good. But the way he has been treated and been slandered and victimized and is just shocking. And the whole lack on the part of some elements of the press to treat him as a human being, and not to take to slant it in such a way that it appeals to the most corrupt elements in people themselves that make them want to read this. And but still, as I say, he has been responsible in a strange sort of ironic way for making it international and focusing attention upon it.
Have you heard anything at all other than rumor about how the fear or the threat of the AIDS illness has changed the way business is being done in Hollywood?
Well, no. The only thing I just mentioned to you was that I heard that there are some rumors to the effect that some actors are concerned about it, as mothers appear to be concerned about sending their children to schools where they think they might be AIDS. All very understandable things when people become frightened, and they're in the dark about something.
Are you frightened?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't have to send any kid to school, for one thing, and it doesn't add to my life. I haven't even thought about it in that respect.
How about in the acting?
No.
I would have to have very concrete evidence that we are endangering ourselves, myself and whoever I was in the scene with. There would have to be evidence that is irrefutable. Otherwise, I choose to ignore it.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster.
As you choose to ignore all those things. You don't go to bed at night and lock your doors because someone might kill you because you can't live that way.
Mr. Lancaster, have you visited with Mr. Hudson?
No, I've never met Mr. Hudson except briefly years ago at parties, and I don't really know him personally.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr.
I don't
Lancaster.
know that I would want to visit him and really bore the man at this point. God knows he's got enough troubles.
Thank you, Boris.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to introduce to you one of the performers this evening and one of the co-chairs of the event, Miss Diahann Carroll.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Thank you.
You've talked a lot about discrimination about blacks in the industry when I've heard you address yourself
That's
now to
certainly-
discrimination against homosexuals and people in the industry with AIDS in terms of the mounting kind of fear that people have about homosexuals.
Let me clarify something. I'm here this evening because I believe that AIDS is a disease that involves human beings. And I think every human being has the responsibility of being concerned. The fact that in my profession, more so than in many other professions, human beings are asked to work in a very close proximity very often. I know very often I've been asked questions about that, and that is true. And that is singularly a particular situation that we have to address ourselves to as actors, actresses. But the situation that involves our lives and the virus, and we have no cure for this virus, is the reason that I am here this evening, because I think being in show business, most of us here this evening will attract a kind of attention that we need to have attracted to this disease so that we can perhaps raise the kind of money, or I don't know, what we will accomplish. It is better than being silent. And that's the reason that I've decided to come here this evening.
Diahann, there's been a lot of rumors, but really no concrete evidence. Have you heard, have you seen of any discrimination against gay actors?
I have not. Perhaps I'm not in a position to be privy to that kind of information, as many others may be. But I know that we are operating in too many areas out of hysteria, and hysteria takes away from our humanity. And I would hope that if that is true, that by people coming here this evening and reminding all of us that it's not only in the gay community that AIDS has attacked and is an enormous threat. We cannot isolate AIDS and say that it is only in the gay community. We have a great tendency to want to do that, you know, as human beings. Very often our little short-sightedness that, that really doesn't have anything to do with me, because I'm not gay. Well, unfortunately, AIDS has something to do with all of us. And I hope what you're saying is untrue. I hope it's not happening.
Have you been personally affected by AIDS?
I have lost some very dear friends, and it's a horrible experience to go through. And I hope that very soon we find out what the hell we're talking about. And, you know, I think we're capable of doing anything we want to do. We're also frightened right now, and I think the fear might even be serving against our making the kind of progress that we could make. No, I've been asked that question. No, I'm not. I'm really not. I think that in my profession, as I say, we're exposed more often, of course, to the kind of intimacy that other professions do not demand. However, most of us are, because we have to use our instruments, we are very, most of us are nice people. Most of us are more humanity-oriented. And I don't think that I would have to worry about an actor jeopardizing me in any particular way. I know that we're all being a little more clinical in our behavior towards each other in the heterosexual community as well as in the homosexual community. And I think that's true on the set as well. But I really don't think I would say I don't want to play a scene with an actor because I felt he was a homosexual.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Now I'd like to introduce you one of the co-chairmen for this evening, Mr. Rod Stewart.
Evening.
Mr. Stewart, why have you become involved with the AIDS project tonight?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious, really. It could be an epidemic, and it may affect all of us one day, and that's why.
Have you been personally affected by it?
No.
I mean, have you had any friends who have contracted the disease?
Thank God, not yet, no.
Tell us what you think an event like this can do for a subject like AIDS. I mean, having people that we all look up to, young people, the old people, how can this help in fighting this disease?
Simply because we're all together, you know, banded together like this. And for me, it's reaching my audience. Hopefully going to reach my audience. The fact that I've taken a part in this, hopefully they'll think about it. Well, hopefully it won't, but I know what you mean. We certainly don't want to over-glamorize the thing. That's why I was worried when I saw the red carpet being rolled out tonight. It just seemed like the Oscars or something, you know.
One more question?
Cindy's not here because she's still doing her hair, she said.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Okay.
Thank you.